Hello everyone, it's the Feast of the Holy Archangels, St. Michael, St. Gabriel, and St. Raphael. I'm here in the church near our beautiful statue of St. Michael the Archangel. And I'm going to fill you in on some remodeling work going on in some rooms that are adjacent to the main church, the main sanctuary. So there's no work going on inside the church itself, but in some rooms adjacent to it, some exciting work I want to share with you. The truth is the thoughts of what to do that's led to the remodeling project have been going on for a little over 2 years now. If you don't know something about me, it's that I tend to at times overthink things, but especially when it involves money or, say, changing physical structures, I really like to make sure I think through all the implications and the possibilities before locking in on a potential idea. So I hope, even though that creates delay at times, that you can appreciate that I try to think carefully about our use of money and any sort of change to physical space. To preface this, you have to remember that we have our beautiful and wonderful St. Ambrose Center, which has provided us a lot of classroom space that's so necessary for our formation efforts and different meetings here at the parish. Before we had the St. Ambrose Center, we had a very limited number of classrooms, one of which is the St. Anthony Room, which is right behind me near that exit sign and kind of around the corner to the right. There's a nice large room in there that until we had the St. Ambrose Center, we used for formation gatherings, for things like confirmation class and RCIA and other meetings. Now that we've had the St. Ambrose Center for the last 2 years in operation, we don't need that room anymore, and in fact the room has remained largely vacant ever since. Once that room was vacant, I began to think about what possibilities we might have to use that room for other purposes. But I wanted to make sure that I had a kind of a long view of things to see how that room could be used, but also to see how our needs were being met by the new St. Ambrose Center. So the bottom line is, after more than a year, I finally decided, after some consultation, to have a plan for that room that I was drawing up plans for with an architect and planning to go forward on. And then COVID and closure happened, and that immediately created concern for Sunday collections and our income. And it didn't seem right to be taking on a building project at that time. Also, just the optics of it, I, along with the Finance Council, agreed probably was not a good idea to do during the closure. Well, the good news, of course, as you also know from past videos and reports, is that our income has been good. Your generosity has certainly continued and grown and been sustained and has helped our parish remain afloat. And so now that we are open again, it's time to finally, after almost 2.5 years, get this project going. And so I'm going to show you what's going on so you have a sense of what's happening here in the church. Our plan for now is that the St. Anthony Room will be made into a new sacristy for the chapel, which contains and will hold not only the vestments for daily Mass, but also a lot of the hardware that we use for Mass and need to have access to. At the same time, a much needed improvement will be that our art and environment people will now have a working sacristy as part of that room, a space they can really spread out in. They've only had like a janitor's closet up till now all these years to work in and storing things in random closets around the campus. And they've needed this space, and I think it's an important need and important use of that room. So they'll have space for the things that they do, storage space, industrial kind of size sinks to put flowers in and fresh cuttings that they use because they make a lot of their own flower arrangements that beautify our sanctuary. And so I'm going to show you the room and let you know what's going on so that you're aware of it, okay? So I'm going to walk back here to the St. Anthony Room and just kind of get inside there briefly. The main part of the work here in this remodeling project, there'll be 2 phases. The first phase involves the St. Anthony Room, this room I'm in right now. You can see it's a nice large room, but presently is not used for anything, and they're already beginning the remodeling work. So about half of the room will be outfitted with cabinetry and countertops and a large island where vestments are laid out for Mass. All the things that we use for Mass, for daily Mass in the chapel will be here, as well as a lot of the hardware that we use for the weekend Mass. Things like the chalices, the different vessels, the ciboria, candles and boxes of candles when those shippings come in, wine and hosts, and all the things that have to have a place to be in the sacristy. So we'll have cabinetry, we'll have storage space, closets for vestments, drawers, and that will be a much better use of this space down here. And about half of the room then will be what I'm calling a working sacristy. That's going to have large industrial sinks for water, for the flowers and different cuttings that our art and environment people need to have the arrangements they make. It'll also have storage space and a lot of space for them to do the work that they do, which they presently don't have. The second part of this particular remodeling project will be in the lower sacristy as it existed up until this point. To let you see that, I'm going to have to go around the corner here into the church and try to keep my voice down to not disturb people in adoration. adoration. I'm really excited about this aspect of this project. So we're remodeling the St. Anthony room, but we're also making changes to what has been the current sacristy, because once that room is remodeled, we won't need the current lower sacristy, which is a much smaller space, but I'm going to tell you what we're going to do with it in just a second. So right now I'm in our current confessional, and we've got a lot of items that are displaced by the remodeling work that are sitting in here. And since we're not using the confessional presently, we're in the main church. This is a place those things can hang out for the time being. But in the across the hall from the confessional, what has been the sacristy up to this point, this space here has been the sacristy for the chapel up to this point. You can tell just the dynamics of this camera shot, that it's a much smaller room. My plan for this room, since we're vacating it to move into the St. Anthony room as a new sacristy and combination work sacristy, is that this space will now become a second confessional, a more proper space for when both Father Bolling and I are hearing confessions at the same time, to allow for confidentiality and privacy, and an appropriate space for that important sacrament. So I think it's a great thing that our parish will have a second confessional to be able to use. We'll turn this space into a confessional, but it's truly bigger than we need for a confessional. Really, our current confessional is bigger than we need too. But what we'll do is we'll subdivide this room so that you'll come in the main door and you'll be able to go to confession. Beyond it will be a wall with another door, which is going to be an additional storage closet, which will be a great benefit to us. We always need storage here in the church. So I'm really excited about these projects. This remodeling work is already beginning. It will get a little loud and cause us to have to displace adoration for a bit, and I'll have more to say about that in just a moment.